one of the things that I found in my experience personally is those times where I do that, it's because I don't want to be vulnerable. Because
What? Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Grace.
How's it going?
It's going well, thank you. How are you? Oh, no. Is that just me or did I unplug
Did you
something?
lose something?
Producer
I can hear
Chris?
you.
Oh.
That means it's not
We
even
are
recording, so we got to start over.
Is not recording?
No.
Oh,
It's recording. That's your.
Oh, that's my headphones.
just can't.
Oh, so we're going to keep going. Sorry about that, everybody. Sorry
Well,
about
you
that.
know,
I
it was
still- I
about
still can't hear
time.
myself, Chris.
it was about time we had a technical
Producer
issue.
Chris, can you? Nope.
Nope.
Got nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Did it pull out of here too?
Oh, that's
No,
good.
you're good.
We're gonna have to start over.
No, let's
Yeah,
start.
yeah.
There you go. There you go. We're not starting over.
I don't know. Do you want
What
to
should we
start
do?
over?
What should we do?
Grace,
We're
you're-
gonna plow through.
Okay, plow through.
Well, the audience, our parent listeners, has gotten a window of our rural technical fanciness we have going on here.
Well, that was just my big size 7.5 foot getting in the way. It pulled the cord out.
But it was about time we had some technical issues.
Yeah.
After 53 episodes in, we've
We've only had a few of these.
only had a few of these.
You know, there was another milestone that we didn't talk about 2 weeks
yeah?
ago.
A what stone?
A
Thank
milestone
you.
that happened 2 weeks ago,
happened?
and we didn't talk about it. It was after the first episode that we did of this.
Of this series?
Yes.
Okay.
Birthday.
What happened?
It was a birthday.
Whose birthday?
Someone you had a birthday.
Oh, you're right.
We totally
You're
didn't
right. I
recognize
wasn't even
that.
thinking you were thinking about me because that was a while ago. Yeah.
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 And I didn't bring cake
Your
or
30th,
anything.
30th birthday?
Well, thank you, Grace. Thank you, Grace.
32?
Grace, if you didn't know how
Oh,
old I
boy.
was, it won't hurt my feelings.
What do you-
But how old would you guess I was? And there's a reason I'm asking.
Oh, my.
How old would you guess I was?
Putting me on the spot.
If you didn't know.
30.
No.
Yeah.
What's the
I
reason
seriously
behind the
would
question?
think 47.
Wow.
I would have went. I don't know why that number
look very
popped in my
young.
head.
I was
you look
with.
47.
I
You're
was
very
with.
young.
I spent 4 nights 3 nights, 4 days in Joshua Tree in an Airbnb with some of our 40-something-year-old pastors.
Mm-hmm.
And we were out walking, and I was talking to one of them about marriage and life. And I made some comment that he was like, and then I could tell it. And he goes, "Well, how old are you?" And I said,
And he was shocked?
I said, "I'm 57." And he goes, "Oh my gosh, I would have put you at 47."
Yeah.
Oh,
He thought I was
how about
basically
that?
Wow.
He thought I
A
was
decade younger.
He thought I was a couple years older than him.
Oh. Well, you have
So
a
I'm
certain
like, hey,
energy about
thank
you.
you.
You're
Okay.
very
Well,
sprightly.
Thank you.
What was that?
I don't even know. Sprightly? What's that mean?
Spry or Sprite?
Spry.
You just have energy. You're like, on the go.
I'm a spry old man. Thanks, Grace.
Anyway.
Did not ever
Anyway.
call a man spry.
I didn't say spry.
No,
I said sprightly.
What is that?
Sprightly's like a little.
Open the show. Open the show. Open the show. I'm going to Google Sprightly.
Okay, you
It's
Google
Tinkerbell.
sprightly
Open the show.
Sprite.
Open the show.
as we look up our dictionary words. Well, parents, welcome to our, fun, wild, and interesting, loving group that we have here. We have Kurt, and I'm Grace, and we have producer Chris, and we are in a 3-episode series, and on the 3rd episode, as we thought about what we want to talk about entering into the new year, and having passed our 50th episode, we really wanted to bring it back to the basics.
Yes.
And what is the whole reason we put this podcast together in the first place.
Yes.
And so the first episode we talked about our on-purpose parent purpose, our goals, our mission, which is to raise interdependent, lifelong followers of Jesus who desire to make a kingdom contribution, and how we can have that vision and that mission carry us through our parenting journey. And then in our second episode, we talked about the strategy, the on-purpose parent plan, where we broke down the different ages and stages that our children go through their various transitions. And also, as parents, our roles and the different goals we might have in those different seasons. And we talked about different resources that are available to parents as well. And so this episode, as we wrap up the series, is to really tie it all together and ask the question, okay, now we have this great vision and now we have this strategy and this plan, but how do we actually do this? How do we actually do this in a way that's sustainable and feasible, and that we don't just burn out and it remains? A lot of times we have these great visions and great plans and the follow through isn't there, or that we're not able to sustain it. And so we wanted to end this series talking a little bit about a few tips that we have, or few essential elements that we feel is really critical to take the time investing in
Yeah, I like that.
to be able to actually
Right.
achieve the vision and follow through on the strategy.
The way I think about it is I'm like, what do we do for ourselves while we're doing this for our kids? Right? Like
Yeah.
this whole strategy is really for our kids. What do we do for ourselves along the way to give us the energy and in one of the first 2 episodes you talked about like the grit, right? Like we got to have this grit. Like how do we? And so we're going to talk today about just 3 things that you might do to help you along the way. Before we do that, Grace.
Oh, did you look it up?
I did. I looked
What
up.
does it say? What does it mean?
Boy, I'll tell you what, Grace. Grace never fails to impress with her
Verbiage,
her
vocabulary.
vocabulary, her intellect, because sprightly is a word.
Yeah.
It is an adjective, so it's a descriptive word. Now I'm
Can't wait to
I'm
hear
going to
it.
read it straight from the dictionary.
Okay.
It starts by being in parentheses. It says, especially of an old person.
Oh no!
It says in parentheses, especially of an old person.
I did
That's
not.
not good.
Especially, and then it says,
I did not know
and
that
then
that's
it
what it
says,
said.
lively, full of energy. Quote, she was quite sprightly for her age.
Oh no!
So it's everything
That is-
I didn't want it to be. It's everything you said it was, Chris.
Yes. Yeah, you can't call a guy
That is
So,
so funny.
I would
especially in
I had
Give
no idea
me-
it actually said of an old person.
give me
especially.
25 years,
And then
please call me sprightly. When I'm 75 years old, or no more than that, 85 years old. When
That's
I'm
so
85 years
funny.
old ish, please call me sprightly. Okay.
See,
that's so
that's
funny.
the picture that comes up that I see.
Yeah, see, you don't, Chris. Don't no, Chris, producer Chris.
Oh, that's so funny.
It's a sprite.
Don't worry, that is not the image I had of you. I
But that's
truly
not-
had
that-
an image of a
Producer,
strong and powerful and mighty man. How about that?
producer Chris is the exact opposite of what you are to vocabulary.
Oh,
He put sprightly as Tinkerbell,
That's what,
but it has nothing to do.
Google Sprite and look at the image, not the drink.
Sprite. That's
That's
not
a Sprite.
Well, okay, but that wasn't the word. The word was sprightly.
all right. We should
Like,
ask
Kurt,
our
you are sprightly
our
for your
listeners to
age.
write in the
you're
comments
you're
what
like
they think.
that, Lee.
Lee.
That's, Chris, producer Chris, you're proving my point. The context of the context of her word
Uh-huh.
should have led you to believe the word she just used, the way she used it, cannot in any way refer to Tinkerbell.
He's refusing. He does not want to be tied to Tinkerbell. Okay.
It makes no sense.
Oh man.
You just called him that name, and that was the image
All
that came to my
right.
head.
All right.
Okay,
I
guys.
take full responsibility.
Hey,
so,
can I share another image? This is getting us back on track.
Okay.
Please,
bring
only
us,
if
bring
it's
us back.
because
Bring us
I'm
back.
feeling
It's like what we're
very
talking
guilty
about.
that nobody cares. You guys,
This is
nobody cares about this stuff.
this is the thing.
They
This
want-
is the thing.
Bring us
so
back.
like this episode, what we're talking about, it's that when you first board a plane, and then the flight attendant kind of goes through and says, "Hey, when the mask drops, put it on yourself first before you put it on your kid, because
Yes.
you need to take care of yourself
This is
first."
that.
So
That's good.
this is that thing.
Oh, that's
Perfect.
good. Producer Chris.
This
Yeah.
episode is putting the mask on our face. Great
Just
job,
when-
producer Chris.
Just when I feel like I don't want producer Chris to chime in.
That's why I don't talk half the time.
He comes in with
He
something
always
so-
pulls through.
He pulls through.
He's so good.
It-
you know?
in spirit of the plane analogy, his plane was going down. Stop. And he was able to pulled it out. It was in a nosedive.
We're back.
And you pulled out
At
of
the
it,
right
Producer
altitude.
Chris. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so here we go.
Here we go.
Here are the things you do for yourself so that you can take care of your kids and raise them in this strategy. The first, and Grace, I'm going to go fast.
Yes.
You got to spend time connecting with God. Like your own soul care, your
Yes.
own walk with Jesus, everything flows out of that. When Rachel and I were first married, the pastor that we grew up under, when he was encouraging people to connect with God, because it's hard, we're busy, life gets crazy, is he would just say, hey, here's my tip. Same place, same time. Make it part of your, like brushing your teeth is usually kind of in the same time and usually in the same place, right? Just make it a routine. And the best way to make it a routine is make it part of your rhythm. I always spend time with God in this chair, at this table. And if you just make it a routine, but if we're not spending time with God, if we're not connecting with the Father, and all of us can relate to seasons where that's been a bigger part of our rhythm, and that's the word I would encourage, is just make it part of your rhythm, right? This rhythm of life. We've all seen the benefits when it is, and we've seen the challenges when it isn't part of our rhythm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to encourage parents who might be listening to this and hear that advice of connecting with God or that essential element, and then maybe tune off, because it could sound something so common. Because
Basic.
you hear it a lot. You got to connect with God. Connect with God. And it's very easy to then be like, oh yeah, of course, connect with God. Yeah, it's important. And it's very easy to intellectually understand that and mentally agree with it, but very difficult often to genuinely have a personal connection and an intimacy with Jesus. And so that's what we just want to just pause and say, even if you've heard this 1,000 times, it is so important and worthwhile to hear it again until you actually build it into your life and build it into your rhythm. A book that I read called Praying Like Monks, Living Like Fools by Tyler Staton. It was great. He has some really wonderful quotes. And one of the things he wrote was, most of us get about knee deep in the Christian life, discover that the water feels fine, and then stop there. We never swim to the depths of divine intimacy Jesus won for us. And this is really an invitation. When you connect with God, that is the source of all your energy. If you are struggling parenting, one of the questions you might ask before you start even thinking about, strategy and all of these other technical things is my relationship with God good? Am I actually giving him any time, or is it all just a head knowledge thing? And the other thing that he wrote in the book that I'll just close with with this point is he writes, when we stop moving, stop talking, and arrive present and quiet before God, he takes all our disordered desires, distorted attachments, and codependency and transforms them into love. And so the connecting with God is not about being a good person or being a bad person, because sometimes I think subconsciously we might go there, like this is the right thing to do. This is the good Christian thing to do. But the reason why we're encouraging this as, putting on your own oxygen mask before helping your children is because this is where you will gain freedom. Yeah. This is that place in the presence of God where you are just still before God, is a place where your anxiety, your worries, your stress, your pressure, you can lay that before God, and he will transform that, help you think through that, help you maybe look at it from a different angle based on what he writes in scripture. And that can be the energy from which you can then go out and parent. And so we just want to encourage this component, not to forget that.
Yeah, and Jesus says, I'm the vine, you're the branch.
Yep.
Stay connected, because apart from me, you can do nothing. And he's not saying, obviously, you cannot do anything without, but it's significance. Like if you want to do anything of significance, you have to stay attached to the vine.
Yeah.
Jesus, the Lord is our vine, and we just want to stay connected and attached, because raising kids is really significant, and we can't do it well and significantly if we're not attached to the vine. So stay connected with God. The other encouragement is, because parenting is challenging and it can feel so lonely, You want to lean into the wisdom of others as much as you can. And so that's the second tip there, is to connect with others. Connect with God, but connect with others. Stay involved in church, join a small group, join a walk club, find a mentor who's maybe a step ahead of you in the child raising. You know, if you're in the stage of elementary school, and that's the role of being a crafter, and the idea of you're nurturing their faith. What if you connected with somebody who's one stage ahead? Mm-hmm. They have junior high kids, and they're in the role of cheerleader and helping their kid own their faith. Like, what can you learn? Be connected. Don't go through life. Don't go through parenting, especially trying to figure it all out on your own, but really lean into and connecting with others. The scripture is full, and we've talked about it in the past, about the importance of relationships and connectivity. And we were born and built and designed to be connected to the vine and to one another.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just add to that, when you are thinking about connecting with others, to really ask yourself, what are the areas where you are compelled to not do it? Like, and why? Because we all have that thing where we put up a wall or I don't want to go there, and to give yourself the space and the time to think about that. Why am I internally reacting in a way that will take me away from others instead of connecting with others? And one of the things that I've found in my experience personally is those times where I do that, it's because I don't want to be vulnerable, because being vulnerable is very uncomfortable. Right. And it comes with risk, right? If you're vulnerable, you're basically, I mean, I think the definition is you're exposing yourself.
Right.
In a way that someone could hurt you.
Yeah.
And so it's easier to just not expose yourself. Like, I'm not going to say something. I'm not going to reach out and ask for a number and ask to connect, because if I do, I'm exposing myself. And what if they say no? Right. Or what if we try to connect and it doesn't work out and it's embarrassing or awkward? What if it's awkward? Right. Oh no, like, we're so, I think, reticent to do things that feel uncomfortable. But I think it's just the encouragement that uncomfortable place is where so many beautiful things can happen. And if you are willing to just take one small step, to take the risk of being vulnerable, and yes, that does come with the possibility that you can get hurt, or possibility that you can, things don't turn out the way you want, or that you get embarrassed, or whatever it is, that out of your comfort zone. But the rewards are so worth it. Mm-hmm. So the encouragement just is, don't be afraid to be vulnerable, and to explore that in small baby steps. Right. And if you do kind of get burned, like, not to be embarrassed about it. It's like, you tried, and that's okay. Yeah. And then keep going at it, because it's just that important to have that connection.
For sure. And as parents, it's so easy to get in our own little head, our own world of, nobody else is going through this with their kid. Mm-hmm. My daughter's the only one who struggles with ABCD. My son and I'm the only dad who loses my temper with my son, right? No, you're not. Mm-hmm. So the vulnerability of, you got to be willing to talk to somebody else about the fact that you lose your cool with your son once in a while, and you take that risk, and then you realize, oh, that's pretty common. Mm-hmm. I'm not alone in this. I'm not a failure because of this. So connecting with others is crucial just in our spiritual well-being as humans, as Jesus followers, but it really has some benefits and practical applications as we parent.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then last but not least, as you connect with God and you connect with others, you need to pay attention to self-care, which is different. We've separated that. Part of self-care is connecting with God and connecting with others. But there's a different aspect of self-care. And I'm going to say, generally speaking, this is not meant to be, for everybody, but generally speaking, this is probably an area that men struggle with. They're just not as good at Now, men, I'm selfish. Kurt goes to the movies when he wants to go to the movies, and Kurt goes surfing when I'm selfish. I can be self-centered. I don't do a good job of intentional self-care the way that I think I could, and the way that I think many times women have a little bit better grasp on this. And so I'm just going to say that, and then I'm going to sit back and learn from Grace on this one.
That's funny you say that. I think maybe women may have talked about it more, maybe it's more accepted to talk about. But
Okay.
I would say women don't, my experience, don't often do a good job with it.
Okay.
Because of the things that are going on inside our heads.
Right.
You know, so what I would encourage women to do, I have just like a few things under this bucket of self-care. Again, none of these things are new or, you know, may seem common, but again, it's those simple things that are not necessarily easy
Right.
that have the most profound impact. And I think it's okay to go back to these basics. But my first encouragement here would be to slow down. And this is a big one for me personally that's very difficult to do. One of the other books that I read this past year, The Deeply Formed Life by Rich Villodas.
That's a very good book.
Yeah, and he spends quite a bit of time talking about the importance of slowing down and just some quotes. There's so many, I won't read all of them, that are just so powerful. But he talks about how our world continues on faster and busier. And then that reminds us that our souls were not created for this kind of speed to which we've grown accustomed to. And so we are out of rhythm and we have too much to do, not enough time to do it. He also writes that this speed that we live does violence to our soul. When I read that, I was like, wow, that is like
Wow.
a poignant
Yeah.
statement. And it causes so many breaks in our relationship with God, with others, lack of depth. And ultimately what he says is that if we become enslaved to this culture of speed and superficiality and distraction, we will never be the wholeness of the person God really wants us to be. And unless we intentionally slow down, and when someone says that to me, my initial reaction is, I know. It's like, it's kind of like the nagging, whatever, like
Yep.
the mentor that's
Yep.
like, slow down. And
I'll
you're
slow,
like,
I'll slow
I
down
get,
when I can find time.
exactly. It's like, yeah, okay, no, I
Yeah.
get it.
Yep.
Sure, slow down. And then you just go back to this frantic pace. And then at the end of the day, it's just like it said, it does violence to our souls.
Right.
We're not designed to do that. And so just a reminder that whatever helps you take one step in slowing down, of just not just running on the, what do they call it? The hamster wheel. For me, things like writing a quote on a Post-it note and just putting it there, or setting an alarm so that I look at it. So even if it's like 30 seconds during the speed of the day where it's like, oh, hold on, let me just take 3 deep breaths
Right.
and realize, who am I?
Yes.
What is my worth based on?
Yep.
What's going on? What's the long game? We
Yep.
mentioned that in a different podcast. And just create that space where God can speak
Right.
into the hurried
Yes.
and frantic pace of your life.
Well, and Grace, as you're saying that, I'm going, all the soul care that we think we need, that we want, all of it hinges on slowing down and creating space for these things, right? So if soul care for you is taking a walk or going surfing, going to the gym, reading a book, all this exercising, guess what? You have to slow down so you can find space
yeah.
for the stuff that feeds our souls,
Yeah.
that takes care of ourselves.
And again, such a simple concept, but I think this is one of the greatest challenges we face,
Yes.
because if you don't really hunker down and say, I am going to slow down,
Right.
you won't.
Right.
It is just,
Yeah.
life will happen, especially as a parent.
Right.
And so the other thing too, the encouragement, second one, is to really embrace and do not feel apologetic for things that you might do that add to your self-care. So whether it's saying no to good things, maybe you can't go to every event or you can't help this friend out in this moment. Do not feel apologetic about it, especially if you're doing that to give yourself some balance.
Right.
And part of it, I think, is maybe our human nature, our brokenness of human nature is to want to be God, right? Like Adam and Eve, like we eat of the apple. And so I think part of our brokenness is we feel like we have to be God, which is be omnipresent, omniscient, like to be able to be everything to everyone. And then we
Right.
feel guilty when we're not. But part of it is embracing, well, you're not God.
Right.
And when you try to carry that burden that really should only be God, that does damage to your soul. And so don't feel bad about saying no. What voice are you listening to in your head? What voice of criticism that might be saying, oh, if you say no, that person's not going to like you, or that person's doing so much. Like, why can't you get your act together? Or you are a less worthy person if you're not doing XYZ, or if you leave your kids with a babysitter to go watch a movie or something. Like, you're a lesser parent.
Right.
Like, to really hone in onto whose voice are you hearing? Where is that coming from? Is that coming from God? And to try and to really create that space to say, well, what does God invite me into that will bring me closer to peace? Because that place of self-care will help you be a better parent.
Right.
And then lastly, just my thought is, just as a reminder, this helps me sometimes give validation and worth to doing self-care activities, is when I think about my kids, this is what I want them to do. So I think about how, from birth, our kids' bodies and their minds were so precious. Like, when they're newborns, if there's like any scratch, we're like, oh my gosh, like put Neosporin or like scar cream. Like, we're just like so super honed in on like their bodies and everything about them. They're so precious. Like, they were created from us, and we are so like loving the wholeness of who they are. And then as they grow, they take care of their own bodies. And I'll just use the physical as an example. And I've mentioned this in past podcasts, but like Karis at a certain age, when she's, I think, started to have a little more anxiety going to school, started to like pick her nails. And as a mom, that hurt me because I would see these like ripped fingernails so low. And I would be like, I don't want you to like do that to your body. And it hurt me just as a mom because her whole being is so precious to me.
Right.
As her mom, like, I care about every aspect about her, and I want her to be whole, to be healthy,
Right.
to then be in a place where she can go out and live the fullness of her life. So I want her to take care of herself. I don't want her to pick her nails. And not that that's like the worst thing in the world, but just as an example, I don't want her to do things that harm her body or harm her mental state or harm her emotional health. And then when I think about that, it's like, I'm a broken person, and that's the heart that I have for my child. God's desire for us is so much bigger and full of more perfect love. And he wants that for us.
Yeah.
He wants us as our daddy. He wants his kids to be whole, to live the most beautiful life, to be healthy. And so when we invest in that, I think our society has twisted it to say like, oh, you're taking care of yourself? Like, how dare you, or like, oh, like a little bit of subliminal shame. But I want to reframe that for our parent listeners. It's like, no, like, you are part of this beautiful family where your Heavenly Father loves you so much and desires for you to take care of yourself, be whole, be healthy. And then from that place, go out and parent your kids. Yeah. And so if you're in a place where you're feeling down or maybe not in the best place for yourself, it's okay to be a good parent, is to take care of yourself right now and to take that one next step that you feel God may be calling you to.
That's so great. And it's just a reminder, hey, parents, it's not about where you are, it's where you're headed, right? You can start today. Yep. You can start today to slow down and begin to practice some self-care that works for you. And I think you'll see all kinds of benefits for it. So as you're raising your children to be interdependent, lifelong followers of Jesus, 2 episodes ago, as you're thinking about the ages and stages, your role and the goals, last episode, we sure do hope that along the way you are connecting with God, you're connecting with others, and you're practicing some self-care. As always, email us at onpurposeparents.com with questions that you might have. Is it onpurposeparents.com?
That's our website.
Parents.
Oh, good night again.
Parents.
I looked up at the screen.
At saddleback.com. Parents at
because you're
saddleback.
right.
Email us at parents@saddleback.com with questions, comments, topics, suggestions. You can go to our onpurposeparents.com website with all of our resources, so many resources, totally for free. Nothing you have to buy on there. There's nothing to buy. Or if you want to be part of our parent text family, you can text parents, just the word parents with an S, to 83000, 83,000. Just text parents. Subscribe, share this with a friend, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.